Check one, check two. Eric, can you hear me? Give me an audio check, Eric. Count to 1,000.
Can you hear me?
You're starting to come through.
Hello,
Give me another
hello.
sound check.
Check, check, check.
All right, we can hear you, but we're going to get the volume turned up here, and then we're going to get started. Making sure we got everything going.
Sounds good.
Excellent. I think we've got it. We're ready to get started. Everything works. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, and welcome into the SCCU Daily Planet Theater. My name is Chris Smith. I work in education here at the museum, and I get the pleasure and privilege of being your host for Dino Dig Live. This is a very exciting and special program where we all have the opportunity to connect and talk and ask questions of the dinosaur experts, our paleontologists, who work here at the museum and right now, this very minute, are in the middle of somewhere, digging up dinosaurs and other fossil material. And joining me now in our program is the manager for the SCCU Dino Lab in the Dueling Dinosaurs Experience. Everybody say hi to Eric Lund. Hi, Eric.
Hello, everybody.
I don't know if you could hear them or not, but they all said hi.
Very good, very good.
Well, Eric, how are things going? Tell us a little bit about where you are in the world and what's going on.
Yeah, things are going pretty great. Right now, we are standing in the world-famous Hell Creek Formation in eastern Montana. And we're surrounded by these beautiful badlands. And right behind me, you see this big white thing. That is a giant fossil jacket that we are trying to get ready to be helicoptered out in September. So we're having a good time. The work's going really well. Yesterday, it jumped up to 105, so it's been a bit hot. And then today, for whatever reason, maybe the heat, maybe something else, we've had a hatch of biting flies. So we're all getting just destroyed out here by these biting flies.
Oh, no. The life of a paleontologist, I guess.
That's right.
So, you said you've been working on this fossil, you called it a fossil jacket that we can see right behind you. Can you tell us a little bit about what you found, or is it a scientific secret?
Nope. So what's in that fossil jacket is one of the best Sabellites or palm frond fossils. So it's not a dinosaur. It's actually a really big plant fossil, and it's the best one known from this formation. So it's really important for us to carefully get this fossil out and bring it back to the museum so people can study this thing. So this particular species of palm has been known from this formation for quite some time, but this is the best one that's ever been found.
Oh, wow, that is incredible. Also, it's kind of cool that you found something other than dinosaurs. But when you say this is the best one, can you tell us a little bit about it? Like, how did you find it, first off?
Yep, so actually the quarry we're standing in started off to be a small crocodile quarry. So that was the first thing that was sort of eroding out of the hill, was a small crocodile. So we, in collecting that, we started finding pieces of dinosaurs. And it turned out that this quarry had a really large portion of a very young individual of Triceratops. And so we've actually been working this quarry over the last couple of years, and we collected a bunch of the baby Triceratops, we collected that crocodile, and then last year when we were trying to get more of that baby Triceratops, we started finding the evidence of this fossil palm. And as we started uncovering it, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger until we realized it was nearly complete from the tips of the leaves to where it broke off from the tree trunk.
Now, I can see like humans around it for scale, but how big is this fossil palm frond?
Yeah, so from one end to the other, it's just over 9 feet. And then from one side to the other, well, it sort of narrows down to where it broke off from the tree trunk, but it goes from about 3 feet wide to about 6.5 feet wide.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. No wonder you said you have to helicopter it out. You can't like get it back here in the truck.
Well, I've asked this team if they would put it on their backs and just kind of haul it out, but they refuse. So I'm going to have to get a helicopter. This jacket, when we're done and everything's flipped and it's ready to fly, is probably going to be about 3,000 pounds.
Oh wow. So that's a big chunk.
That's a big chunk of rock. Yep.
I'm glad you're not making the team carry that out on their backs.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. So you said a lot of cool dinosaurs, crocodiles, and plants are coming out of this one fossil site. How did y'all find this site to begin with? Like, how do you find fossils out in the middle of what just looks like desert to me?
Yep, great question. So as you can see, we're in an area with high topographic relief. Uh, there is very little vegetation here. So for us to find fossils, we've actually got to see fossils being eroded or weathered out of the rock. So technologies like ground penetrating radar, things like that don't work for us. Because the bones are fossilized in the rocks we find them in, the density contrast between the fossil and the rock is really, really similar. And so technologies like ground penetrating radar just don't give us a very good signal. So we've got to physically see bone eroding out of the surface, and if we find bone, then we try to find where it's coming from, find that layer, and then start digging in to see if there's more. And oftentimes there's not. Everything we find, maybe a bit, maybe a single piece, maybe a single bone. But occasionally we get lucky, and as we dig in, we find a bit more. And then we sort of stop, and we've got to go back and apply for special permits from the federal government to allow us to come out here and dig these big holes to get the rest of the fossils out.
So there's always some paperwork, I guess.
Always paperwork.
So anybody here in the audience ever think that they would like to be a paleontologist at any point? Yeah, I see some youngsters who are like, yes, still want to be a paleontologist. Get ready. There's paperwork. You're going to be doing no, I'm kidding. There's lots of cool stuff to do. So Eric, how did you actually become a paleontologist and get to have this job where you dig up fossils?
Yeah, so I've wanted to be a paleontologist since I was 3 or 4 years old. I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah, and Utah has Dinosaur National Monument. My grandparents took me there when I was little, and I was hooked ever since. And so so I knew what I wanted to do for a long time. So I went to university, did my undergrad, and during my undergrad, I was better at geologic processes than I was at biology, so I went the geology route. And I got my degree, and then I went on to grad school, and then I did even more grad school after that. And then I moved to Raleigh in 2018 to help sort of manage the SECU Dino Lab.
What a path. Very cool. Thanks for sharing. So, if you're here with me inside the theater and you have questions about paleontology, working in the field, digging up fossils, or working here at the museum in the lab, all you got to do is let me know you've got a question. You can wave your hand, and then you can actually come up on stage, use the mic, talk directly to Eric out there in the field if you want. You can also just tell me what your question is, and I can use the mic and tell them. If you're up on the balconies, just wave down at me. I can call on you, you can yell at me, and we'll share your questions into the program. And for our viewers who are watching on the YouTube live stream, you can type your questions into the chat. I've got that pulled up, and I can toss your questions to Eric out in Montana as well. So I did see a hand go up. Was it right here? Did you want to come up, or you want to stay there? Okay, what's your question? Oh, okay. Eric got a good question for you. The question was, if somebody is out and about and they find a fossil, can they just give it to the museum? Can they keep it? What should they do?
Yeah, well, it depends on the fossil. So all vertebrate fossils are protected by federal laws. So you can't collect any vertebrate fossil. Um, but if you find, a chunk of fossil wood, find some invertebrate fossils like clamshells or gastropods, and you can collect a few of those. But if you find a vertebrate fossil, the best thing to do is take a picture of it with a scale bar so we can see how big it is. Try to note where you're at. So um, when you tell the museum, say, hey, I found a fossil, we can look at that picture. And if it's, actually something, then we can go and try to take a better look at it in person and maybe excavate it properly and then bring it back to the museum. So that's sort of the best way to do it is just leave it there, take a picture of it, note where it's at, and let the museum know.
Okay, very cool. And I guess that also sort of preserves some of the information about the fossil. Like if somebody just brings a fossil into the lab, it's going to be really hard to actually learn much about it.
Correct. Yeah, we need to know the paleo environment that fossil was in. So the more data we can collect about that fossil, the better, and the more things we can learn about that particular element or whatever it is that you have found.
Very cool. Great question. Great question. So you said you're in a part of Montana called the Hell Creek Formation. Any other cool finds that the team has made?
So we've mostly been here at this quarry. We have found more pieces of that juvenile or very young individual Triceratops, which is really exciting. We did sort of poke around the hills that surround us here and found a few chunks of bone, a few chunks of Triceratops, a few bits of turtle here and there. But we've mostly been here focusing on getting this palm frond ready to fly.
Sounds like a lot of work. And I think I recall that y'all found this palm frond last year. So how long has the work in this one site been going on?
So this site was initially found in 2001. So we've been
Oh
working it for
gosh.
the last 3 years.
Oh wow. So it's taken that long, that much time to get this work done.
Yep. So we come out to Montana for a couple weeks a year, and during those couple weeks, we hope to find lots of fossils uh, in this quarry. Last year, the fossils sort of petered out, but we got, the fossils of the Triceratops started to peter out, but we got this fossil palm that's behind me. And so we came back to focus on that. And in focusing on the fossil palm, we started finding other small bits of the Triceratops, some more ribs from that particular animal. So sometimes it does take quite a long time to fully process a site to make sure that you have gotten all the elements that are preserved here.
And do you normally find like the same types of fossils, like the same types of dinosaurs, or is there a lot of diversity that you come across?
There's quite a bit of diversity. I mean, this whole ecosystem was full of different crocodiles and turtles, and dinosaurs like hadrosaurs and triceratops and the world famous T-Rex. We do find pieces of those fossils here too. So when you're going out, you could find, who knows what you're going to find that day. You could find all sorts of different things.
And is this the part of the world where the dueling dinosaurs were from? Because they're from Montana, right?
They are from Montana. We're a couple hours away from that specific locality, but it is the same geologic formation, the same rocks that we're working in that the dueling dinosaurs came from.
All right, let me get another audience question. I see a hand up. How do we know how old the fossils are?
It's a great question. So we can't date the fossils directly. So what we have to do is date the rocks around the fossils. And so when we're out here doing the stratigraphy or trying to learn about all these rocks out here, we look for volcanic ashes. And so we can take a little sample of that volcanic ash and we can radiometric date it. And that gives us sort of relative age of this formation. And so then if we have a fossil quarry that's at one level, we try to find a volcanic ash that's below it and above it. And then that gives us a bracket on how old this particular dinosaur is. And so, what's kind of exciting about this particular quarry that we're at right now is we're right below the KPG boundary. So, that boundary that signifies the end of the dinosaurs. So, we have a pretty good uh, time frame for when this dinosaur was alive. So, this is, maybe one of the last Triceratopses that was around during the Cretaceous.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. So you can actually, for where you're at and where you're digging, you can actually see that layer of when the meteorite collided with the planet.
I can. It's a very distinct coal lens that sort of surrounds this whole basin, and so I can see it on this hill behind the camera here, and it's off in the distance behind me, but you can pick it out.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. I think that's amazing. Which, for folks who are actually here in the museum, you can also see a piece of this up close. Right next to the entrance of Dueling Dinosaurs, we've got a big chunk of rock in a case, and you can see highlighted that layer, that special layer that indicates the meteorite collision that wiped out most of the dinosaurs. Don't miss it. Take a picture of it. Post it on social media because it's real wild stuff. So, tell us a little bit about the team that you're working there with, because obviously you're not doing this work alone, and what types of jobs they have and what they've been doing.
Correct. So, we've got a team of volunteers and students. We've got a student all the way from Germany here visiting with us. It's his first time out in the field, and so he's really excited to be here and learning all the techniques. We also have grad students from NC State and other museum staff out here with me. So we're a great crew. We're a diverse crew. Come from all different walks of life. So it's pretty exciting.
Are you all paleontologists? Like, does everybody say that they're paleontologists, or are there different specialties?
Uh, would y'all say you're all paleontologists? Yeah, everybody gave a thumbs up.
All right, great. I guess I asked because you were saying, like, when you were in university that you studied geology, for example, and not exactly paleontology, but then I guess applied that to dinosaurs.
Correct. Yeah. So paleontology today is very interdisciplinary. So you can come from a whole different, diverse background. You can be a chemist, you can be a physicist, you can be a computer scientist, you can be an artist, and you can just work on fossils and call yourself a paleontologist.
Now, there's a question on YouTube. One of our viewers is curious about what some of these people are doing around the fossil jacket. Can you tell us a little bit about the tools and techniques that y'all are using to get this fossil out of the ground?
Yep. So right now we're trenching around this fossil. So the fossil will be on a big pedestal of rock, and then we've got to start. The white stuff is plaster and burlap, and so it creates a hard encasement around the whole thing. So the team right now is using rock hammers and long punch-all center punches to sort of chip away at the rock underneath this fossil so that we can wrap the plaster and burlap around and create a hard shell. And once we have that hard shell on it, then the fossil sort of looks like a mushroom because it's sitting on this pedestal with this hard cap on the top. And we'll keep doing that. We'll keep digging around it, reducing that pedestal until the whole block sort of becomes wobbly. And then at some point, we're going to flip the whole thing over. And then in this case, we're going to flip it over into a helicopter net so that it's ready. So now the bottom becomes the top, and we'll clear away some of the rock. One to sort of lighten the load because we don't, block is already super heavy, so we got to take some of that weight out, and then that just kind of cleans off and makes a flat surface that we can put more plaster and burlap on that top side, and that's how we get plaster all the way around a fossil block. And so that's what the team's doing right now. And then other members of the team are slowly lowering the floor, looking for more pieces of that Triceratops, and making a nice sort of flat area for this big block to flip into.
It sounds like really hard work, just digging rock all day.
Oh, but it's pretty great. We've had some great conversations. We listened to music. And it's, this is, so we're working in mudstone, so that's what this rock is that we're working in. And it's actually, as rock goes, it's pretty soft and it's breaking up quite nice. So we can get at it with hand tools. Some of the rock we work in is super hard, and we have to actually use diamond studded rock saws to help cut through it. But in this case, we can just get at it with hand tools.
Fascinating stuff. What would you say then is your favorite thing about being out in the field and doing this part of paleontology?
Honestly, it's discovery. Being able to just hike these badlands, seeing fossils that haven't been seen for 66 million years, hanging out with this group of people, great conversations. Yeah, so it's just being out here. Yes, it's hot. Yes, it's buggy. But we're discovering stuff. We're working as a team. We're uncovering things that haven't been seen for 66 million years. So it's pretty great.
Questions from the audience? Go for it.
Is there any modern technology that can use to discover what's beneath the surface, like they have done with other?
So are there any modern technologies that you can use to help you find fossils underground? You mentioned not being able to use ground penetrating radar, but maybe there's other things?
Yeah, so we've tried other things like setting out geophones that sort of measure seismic waves. And again, those didn't really um, work that well for us. But maybe as we go along and technologies get better and better and more fine-tuned, maybe things like that will work. One of the cool things that we tried last year was using a technique called laser stimulated fluorescence. And so fluorescence is where you can shine different wavelengths at minerals, or in our case, fossils. And the minerals inside those fossils will absorb some of that high energy light and then give that back off. So this is something we have to do at night. But one of the cool things is we coupled this with drones. And so we attached a laser to a drone along with a camera, and then flew that drone over the ground, shooting that laser down with the camera open. And then that sort of, if anything fluoresced back at the camera, then we could see that and we could be like, oh, here's maybe a potential area that we can go look for because there's a bunch of fossil on the ground. So it doesn't help us see fossils in the rock, but it helps us see potential areas where fossils have already eroded out on the ground, and maybe a place to go look and dig in a little bit to see if there's more fossils there. So that's probably one of the newest technologies that we're trying to implement. So drones, lasers, and then photography.
Yeah, drones shooting lasers at fossils. That sounds like pretty modern tech to me. That's wild. It must be fun to do as well, like just sitting out in the middle of the desert in the middle of the night shooting lasers at the ground. I don't know, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Yeah, it's pretty surreal. To see the laser beam just like scanning across the surface and see the blinking lights of the drone off in the distance. Meanwhile, you're sitting back at the quarry in a comfy chair just flying this drone. So it was pretty fun.
That's awesome. All right, Arma, if you're here in the theater and you got questions, want to chat with Eric, again, just wave at me. Let me know whether you're on the first, second, or third floors. Everybody can ask questions. Let me get another question from the YouTube live stream. Can radioisotopes be used to directly date the fossils versus dating the rocks above and below?
So it's not my specialty field, but I do know that people are trying to figure that out. And so fossils have a whole bunch of different minerals in them. And so people are trying to figure out a way to date the minerals inside the fossil itself to see if we can get at that question of trying to date the fossil itself. So I'm not super familiar with the technique yet, but there is potential there.
There's also some questions that have come in on the chat about, well, specifically one of our viewers wants to know everything there is to know about Siachmicrorum, a dinosaur that Dr. Zano discovered. They're like asking taxonomic questions. Do you know what kind of dinosaur Siach was?
So Siach comes from much older rocks than we are here. Comes from Utah, from the mustn't touch it formation. It's an allosauriid, so a another big meat-eating dinosaur. Um, but I wasn't the one who discovered that species, but still a very cool dinosaur. Um,
Might have to go pull up the Google Scholar and give that one a search. Pull that
that's
paper.
right. That's right.
Excellent stuff. All right, I'm going to take a scan through the room real quick. So you're covering everything in this plaster. Have you ever had anything get damaged? Or what happens if a fossil breaks?
Well, if fossils break all the time because they're super fragile, especially as we're trying to be very careful to dig down through the rock. But occasionally we will have, unfortunate mark of discovery. But if that happens, we can fix it, right? We try to do very little out here in the field. We try to wait until we get stuff back in the lab, where it's in a more controlled environment, where we can use various archival adhesives to help piece stuff back together. Um, but I've never had, knock on wood, never had a fossil jacket break. Um, I know colleagues that have had fossil jackets break for whatever reason, but I've never had one yet, and I hope to not have one anytime soon.
We'll wish you much luck when it's 10,000 feet in the sky. And
That's right. That's right.
so once you get it on the helicopter, once you've got this thing on its way back to Raleigh, what happens when these things get to the museum?
Yep. So we got that brand new SCCU Dino Lab where the whole front wall of that lab opens up. So I can pull the trailer with this big fossil directly out front of the museum. And then using a boom lift, we can lift this fossil directly into the lab. And then who've been through the flex zone and seen that lab, there's that big yellow apparatus at the top, which is a 10-ton overhead crane. And so I can, bring that crane forward and pick this big fossil up and bring it back into the lab. But we'll probably get it on machine skates so we can roll this thing around and bring it farther into the lab and maybe start working on it right away. Or it might get taken down to collections where it will sit for a while until we're ready to open it up and start uncovering this fossil palm.
That was going to be my next question is I can see that, like the team has already done some work to uncover these things. For example, that you've got a fossil palm. So how much excavating do you do in the field? How much exposing of the fossil do you do compared to how much you'll then do once the fossil is in the lab? Like, are you going to remove the whole thing in the lab? You said you've got 3,000 pounds of rock there. Is it going to become 1,000 pounds of rock later once it's back here at the museum?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So with the plant fossil here, this fossil palm, it is really just a carbon film on the top surface of this rock. So it will stay mostly rock. We will try to reduce it down as much as possible. And we've uncovered the whole top side of it. That's how we know how big it is, and we can see the whole fossil palm. With a dinosaur bone, we do the same thing. We'll uncover its top side in its entirety so we can see it from the top side. And then we move out from there to leave that margin of rock to dig that trench around it. But yeah, we try to do very little out here in the field. So uncover the top side in its entirety, but once we flip it over, then we'll remove a little bit of rock to make the jacket just a bit lighter. But for the most part, we'll leave most of the rock in place, take it back to the lab, and then we'll start the process of removing that rock or matrix away from the bone to get the bone out.
Very cool stuff. I have to ask you, Eric, maybe besides the biting flies, because that's obvious, what's the least favorite part of being a paleontologist?
The paperwork. Yeah. Yeah, once we finish here, by regulation of our permits, we're required to put in a year-end report. And so that's the hardest thing for me, is to sit down at the computer after being out in these beautiful spaces and write up this report and then send that off. So I don't like that part very much.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'd much rather be in the field digging up dinosaurs, perhaps.
That's right.
Well, Eric, I will let you get back to your work, because it looks like you've got at least a little more to do today before you're going to get to wrap up.
Yeah, just a little bit. So today, later this afternoon, we're going to start putting more layers of that plaster and burlap over this jacket and continue to reduce that pedestal down. So hopefully the breeze kicks up and pushes away these flies, and hopefully the sun treats us a little nicer today and doesn't jump up to 105.
Whew. Well, look, we're all going to send you some good vibes today from Raleigh. I hope they get there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Everybody, this is Eric Lunn. He's the SCCU Dino Lab Manager. Everybody say thanks, Eric. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Tell the team we said hello. And thanks for being with us, Eric. And hey, thanks everybody
Wonderful.
for coming out. Thanks for participating in person or online in Dino Dig Live. We'll be back with one more check-in from our team. We're going to see how the progress that they're doing next Friday, August 9th. So come back here to the museum or head to the museum's YouTube channel, North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, and you can watch live and see how the team is doing, what progress they've made, new discoveries, and more conversation. I hope we'll see you again here soon. Enjoy your Saturday here at the Museum of Natural Sciences, everybody. Goodbye. Thank you, Eric. Great job. Appreciate you.